Hello and welcome. I am Casey Purgatory, better known as Fiendly, or just the Manhunt / Splatterhouse guy. But what we're doing today is not one of my dubiously famous Let's Plays. What we're doing here is a podcast that I am calling Violent Waves, fittingly enough for my past gaming history. For this introductory episode, I have a guest who may now introduce themselves.
I'm Beck, also known as Anoia, and that's pretty much it. I'm known for nothing.
I disagree. You're known for... You would know them if you watched my Body Harvest Let's Play, which you statistically did not. It was very unpopular. Valhalla, I've seen you on. That was a good LP.
I'm known for cats. That's pretty much it.
So, a little bit about this podcast idea. It originally started as a hilarious Twitter joke.
As most things do.
Yeah, exactly. All the best things. I tweeted that Let's Players are basically comedians without the recognition. Which led me to say that, hey, maybe someone should do, like, What the Fuck with Mark Maron, but for Let's Players.
Nice.
Yeah, that idea has evolved. I don't even like What the Fuck with Mark Maron, so I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I'm hoping this will be more like a podcast no one remembers called Professor Blastoff, where they would just take a subject and talk to people who were funny and had experience on the subject.
Uh-huh.
And would just bullshit and have a good time.
Yeah. Funny thing, I thought about becoming a stand-up comedian. The problem is, with cerebral palsy, I can't really stand up. So, yeah.
That's a superb opening line, though.
Uh-huh. So, now I just write stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to be a comedian as well, but I'm not funny anymore. That's a bit of a roadblock.
Well, it's in the eye of the beholder.
I'll be the judge of whether or not I'm funny. And I judge harshly.
Self-deprecation abounds.
So that was the seed of this podcast idea. But I buried it. I actually explicitly promised Skippy Granola that I would never bring it up again. But I was talking in the Let's Play Zones forums, and they have a LGBTQ topic. And I was talking about how I'd kind of like to, cover LGBTQ subjects in Let's Plays, but I was wondering if maybe the medium of Let's Plays sort of isn't mature enough for that.
That's a good point.
Yeah. The general consensus was sort of wishy-washy on that. So, figuring that might not be necessarily the most appropriate place to talk about such things, I brought up the idea I had of doing a podcast where I would talk to people about more serious things than video games. The response was very, very positive in that thread. I got like half a dozen likes, which is all I need for validation. So I took it out of the garbage can, put it back on the back burner, and here we are now. So thanks, LGBTQ thread.
Yes, thank you for enabling this.
Yes, indeed. Now you have to suffer the result of what you've caused.
Yeah, I racked my brains trying to think of queer rep in games. And I've been rewatching the Harvest Retsu Prey. And
oh, yeah. Harvester.
Oh my god, it's painful. It's so painful. Yeah.
Isn't there just like a bunch of slurs in that game because it's like a 18-year-old shithead who's the main character?
Yeah, but you also have the flaming fireman.
Right. Oh, that is a good game.
And what's worse is the guy can't even do the stereotypical gay accent. He sounds like Daffy Duck, like they point out.
So that's an example of poor representation in video games.
Yeah.
In fact, almost all examples are of poor representation in video games. BioWare is stepping on landmines left and right.
They try.
Yeah, they try. They insist on making Link the blankest slate of all time, but also insist that he be male 100%, no matter how much they tease you otherwise.
That outfit. Damn it.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, Nintendo. Thanks for that.
Oh, and also Zelda, with the whole thing with Sheik.
Oh yeah, Zelda and Sheik. Sheik is kind of a powerful character.
Yeah.
I mean, they do also insist that she's 100% female, but...
Even though posing as a man, using male pronouns...
Yeah. I mean, it's at least enough that you can kind of interpret it, but it's still a bad example.
Yeah. Nintendo's just going, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. As they do with all things.
Yeah, the main problem is getting mainstream representation, which is where Life is Strange sort of accomplishes something.
Yeah.
Simply by being published by a huge developer, probably the biggest developer.
And then, even when you get the gay ending, it's just hand-holding. And honestly, I couldn't finish it because of the how do you do fellow teens slang.
I played about 5 minutes in preparation for this recording, and it is egregious.
Yeah, also a problem for me was the precision with rewinding time. Not good with my spastic hands. I kept overshooting or undershooting, and it got too frustrating.
Yeah, very common problem in video games in general, I would assume.
Yeah, so accessibility. Please think more about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The only, maybe overall good example of queer representation I can think of is Read Only Memories, where every character is queer and it's no big deal.
Yeah. Also, set your own pronouns. Awesome.
Yep. I sort of ruined the game for myself by making them weird and impossible to understand. But that was fun. It's also a game that is, way, way too dialogue heavy.
Yeah, I got bogged down in looking at everything because absolutely everything has a description, and I'm just compelled to look at everything possible, so I didn't make much progress.
Yeah, I was very similar. I had to rub the spoiled milk on literally everything in the game.
So, thank you, devs of that, for the detail, but also damn you for that.
Mm-hmm. But it was overall very good queer representation because all the devs were queer, pretty much. And I've listened to their podcast. It is of varying quality. Makes me feel better about doing this podcast.
I'm honestly not much of a podcast person.
Yeah, I kind of was curious about that.
I don't know what it is.
I know you listen to the McElroys, right? Like everyone.
Just their YouTube stuff.
Ah.
So pretty much I need a visual.
That's somewhat fair. I am going to be doing some visual elements for this podcast since it's going up on YouTube.
Cool.
For example, I'm going to throw up a selfie right now. Check that out. A self-taken photographic image, or selfie for short. You better believe the first hour of Life is Strange is about selfies, so.
And now we're hip with the kids.
Hell yeah.
Just like Life is Strange and their totally on-point dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, podcasts are a bit more of a personal medium than Let's Plays, I'd like to think, so I'm trying to differentiate this from my usual Let's Play vagary and not having a personality whatsoever by putting up a grainy image of me trying to look cool.
As for me, no photos exist. I have a cryptid in real life. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. You could throw up a picture of something blurry and spooky.
And mythical.
Yeah. Just Bigfoot.
Yeah, that works. Oh yeah, we talked about queer representation. One thing we notably missed is any representation of asexuality, because that's not going to happen in video games.
Yeah, you gotta romance them.
Mm-hmm. It's all love stories with tragic endings.
Oh yeah. Only the heteros get happy endings.
Really, you're not going to find much asexual representation anywhere. The first real example I ever saw was BoJack Horseman, the latest season.
Oh yeah, Todd.
Yep.
He's my hero.
He was my favorite character before that. So I was very happy.
Yeah, without even thinking about it, pretty much made him the main character in the story I wrote.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know how obvious it was, but yeah.
I can see that now. But, yeah, we should plug that. You were in a book called Unburied Fables, I believe.
Yeah. My story is Expectations. It's kind of like The Prince and the Pauper, but the prince is just an ace guy, and he just wants to not marry any princess. So the pauper gets the princess, and they live happily ever after.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It's a very short story, but
Yeah.
I can speak from experience that the depiction was very accurate. I am ace myself. And that's been something I've wanted to talk about for years. The aforementioned Professor Blastoff podcast, which was very successful despite the fact that everyone has forgotten about it since it ended. I once wrote them saying that they should do an episode on asexuality because it was a subject that had come up in passing 2 episodes in a row, and the host both times completely derailed the podcast and talked about it for like 20 minutes.
Awesome.
So I wrote them up. I said, you should probably do a whole episode about this. I have interest in it because I am asexual. And they said, okay, come on, and we'll talk about that for like an hour. And unfortunately, they stopped doing episodes with call-in guests before I had the opportunity to actually come on the show.
Of all the luck.
It's been a huge regret of mine for years. I would have been amongst the likes of Sarah Silverman, a bunch of famous people, Nick Offerman, Molly Ringwald. They were all guests on Professor Blastoff, and I would have been at the same level as them had I made it onto that show.
Well, on the bright side, you didn't have to deal with any of the backlash associated with being on a big show.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, but I was very worried I was going to fuck it up because I'm worried about how I'm going to fuck up this podcast, so...
We could be fucking up right now. Ooh.
Yep. I'll just try to put that out of my head. So I've wanted to talk about it publicly for years, and now that I am, I don't have much to say.
Yeah, it took me forever to figure it out, and I actually was one of the terrible gatekeepers for a while I was in denial. I was, one of those people who was against things. I actually was on many levels, and I feel bad about that. Let's not get into all the things that,
No, you're very cool now, so we can bury that past and talk about it safely.
I will go back in time and punch myself.
But you do bring up a very important topic because it is Pride Month. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on first. I was actually originally going to have Skippy Granola and D. Scruffy one on just to talk about doing Let's Plays, because that's an interesting, relatable topic that isn't too heavy.
Yeah.
But I figured I'd let people in on what the podcast is actually going to be with the first episode, with a real-ass topic.
It's all queer stuff.
Yeah, indeed. But a big thing about Pride Month, the main thing I've been seeing in my circles is no asexuals, no bisexuals. Keep those people out of queer culture.
Oh god, the discourse just goes round and round and round.
Yep. But on my end, in my little corner of the internet, 100% of what I see is people saying, that's stupid, let in asexuals and bisexuals.
Yeah.
They're as valid as anyone. And that has actually been extremely helpful for me. Like, I've been into asexual erasure myself, despite being thus. And this is actually the first year I've ever felt even the faintest bit accepted into any sort of LGBTQ space.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been good, despite the fact that everyone has been angry and yelling.
Yeah. I'm still nervous about coming out in public.
Yeah, that is a real problem for me in general. It was about 10 years ago, actually, that I started telling people in person that I was asexual. The second person I ever told laughed in my face, and I never told anyone again. Yeah. I've obviously come around on that.
Lately, if people ask, I just say queer, because it's safer.
Yeah, like in queer circles, it's still difficult.
Yeah.
I do note that I'm saying the word asexual a lot, and I've begun switching to ace, I was not comfortable with Ace for a long time because it seemed too cool.
I like Ace. Ace of Spades.
Yeah. Unwittingly, a very queer-friendly song. But yeah, it felt like it was sort of trying too hard, Ace. Like, I defined myself as a hetero-romantic asexual for a long time, and I realized what that meant was I'm a straight ace. That is totally radical to the max. That is like something they would write in Life is Strange.
That's great.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like using ace. But now it's very important, I think, to have like a monosyllabic way to express your identity.
Yeah. I'm homoromantic. And it's just so complicated. It's like, I like girls, but I'm also non-binary. So it's just so complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is homo? What is hetero?
I guess it'd be pansexual now? I don't know.
Yeah. Wait, pansexual?
I don't know.
The terminology is brand new and it's still outdated.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Absolutely. Like, I've seen, like, Mogai was going around for a while.
Oh, no. No. That's not good.
Yeah. They've rescinded that one. That one did not catch on in the correct circles. What I've started to see recently was GRSM. That's gender romantic sexual minorities. Sexuality minorities.
That still gives me some pause.
Yeah, it's much, much more inclusive than LGBT without being cumbersome.
I kind of like quilt bag.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that's rearranging all of them together.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like queer. I do worry that it is a slur that has been reclaimed. In general, I don't feel that it's a slur. I've never had it really used as a slur in my lifetime. But coming from my voice, it feels a bit like a slur.
It's a weird issue. Like, I mostly only see teens bring it up. And then you have the older members of the community step forward and go, look, kids, we got called this. We reclaimed it. It's fine.
Oh, interesting. The older community is saying it's okay?
Yeah. I mean, generally it's pointed out that it's cis white gay guys who try to say queer is a slur, and it's used as gatekeeping. Basically, queer is the identifier for the fringe sexualities, like bisexual, asexual, all that. And the people who try to say it's a slur are basically only bringing that up to try and push us out. So more often than not, it's concern trolling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's people who aren't as easily placed into a box will then choose a word queer that is very vague, but still very evocative and very accepting.
Yeah, so you have white lesbians and white gay guys saying, you can't say that. And really, it's just that they have a problem with us.
Yeah, I can see that now. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's always very upsetting to me to see infighting in any sort of oppressed group.
Oh, yeah. But generally, when you have the older queers, if they call themselves that, they're either going to be really chill, accepting of everybody, or they're going to be extremely combative of anything new in the community. So it's a struggle.
Yep, it always is.
Like there's the whole drag queen issue where it's mentioned that it was once the only way that trans people could express themselves, and now people think that it's insulting to trans people and like demeans them, and it's catch-22 of its history, and also you have drag queens actively putting down trans people. So it's kind of like, where do you draw the line? Yeah,
absolutely. That is a very, very complicated issue. That's a hornet's nest.
Yeah, it's like in my area, we have a drag queen bingo with the Guilford Green Foundation. And straight people love drag queen events. So they raise a lot of money for charity with that. And I can't really fault them for doing what they can to bring people in and get money. And they, like, donate to LGBT youth group type stuff.
Yeah, so clearly doing good with the concept, despite the controversy.
Yeah.
It gets to be a little bit like the casting straight guys as trans people.
Yeah. I mean, it's visibility, but you could do better.
Mm-hmm. Got to pick your battles, really.
Yeah.
Another thing that's a fun gatekeeping exercise that a lot of people try to fling at people is if you haven't been sufficiently hated by the public, then you are not officially LGBT. That's one that asexuals just get buried with, because no one believes that asexuals get attacked or treated as less than or anything of the sort.
If you've never been punched, and it's just like, well...
Yeah, the argument against that is that it gives 100% of the power to define what a person's identity is to their abusers.
Yeah, that's just messed up.
Yeah, like that alone is argument against it, but also, like, assuming that all asexuals have never experienced any hardship because of their identity is patently incorrect.
Yeah.
I've got a long series of anecdotes that I could rattle off, but I will spare the world. That's very upsetting.
Just my long and arduous process to figure out what I am was difficult enough and traumatic enough, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one example I can give that isn't too devastating is that basically I was working at a Toys R Us, actually.
Uh-huh.
And, I went into the back room to get something, and one of the straight guys I worked with, who was really cool, I want to emphasize, he's a good dude.
Uh-huh.
He was trying to bond with me, so he asked, hey, you see any hot moms out there?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Again, cool dude. This is just typical straight guy behavior, which I could also expound upon relentlessly because I've been clocked as a straight dude my entire life.
Yeah.
But he was just trying to bond, but I responded with, not that I noticed. And a guy next to him, a guy who was inexplicably very popular and who had clearly had it in for me for a very long time, just said, told you he was gay. Like, right in front of my face, right in front of everyone, dead silent in the room, and I was shunned for the rest of the season that I worked with these guys.
God damn.
Yeah, not because they had a problem with me, but because I was now a problem to this other guy who was well liked.
Mm-hmm.
So I was out of the club.
I had a weird, unusual problem with identified as a lesbian for a while. And my one and only boss, like I had the same job for 15 years, was also an out lesbian with a partner and everything. What ended up happening is she ended up being harder on me than other employees because she was afraid she would get accused of showing me favoritism.
Mm.
So, like, she would call me in and go, like, I'm sorry, like, she would go periods where she would be okay and she would go lightly, and then somebody would say something, and then she would have to go back and, hit me with one of those performance notes. And there was always the stipulation, like, I have to do this. Somebody said something.
Ugh.
So, yeah, it's like, you gays are banded together.
Yeah, exactly. Dealing with the optics of trying to make yourself look normal, but it's never good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Workplaces are very, very difficult for really anyone in any sort of LGBTQ situation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to stick to the word queer because it's monosyllabic. Like I said, that is important and useful.
Yeah. And I stammer anyway, so less chance of stumbling over it.
Keeps things flowing more nicely. Now, you did mention a few times the non-binary identity that we now both share.
Yeah.
I believe we came out right around the same week, which was interesting. I came out to basically nobody, like a friend of mine who nobody knows. So it was complete coincidence.
I think I kind of came out in stages. Like, I was they, she for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point I went, fuck it, it's they, just they.
I did exactly the same thing around that same time because I've been sort of shopping around the term asexual tomgirl for years now.
Yeah.
And putting they, he, they after that.
Mm-hmm. And plus I've been called...
I shifted to they, them.
Yeah. I've been called sir all my life, even though I have size C tits, which I guess it's just an energy I exude. And it's gotten to the point where I like it anyway. Like, ma'am just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And also, ever since I got my first period, I've wanted to remove my ovaries with a melon baller. So, a little bit of dysphoria there.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to get as anatomical about it, but I concur very I
just want to drive home how much I hate that part of my anatomy.
No, absolutely. I've been the same way since about, 6, I can recall. It's classic dysphoria.
Yeah, I didn't care until it made itself known.
Mm-hmm.
Also, cried when I got boobs, but I've gotten to the point where I don't mind them. Sometimes binder, sometimes not. I've kind of taken the Bowie approach, where some days masculine, sometimes feminine.
Yeah, almost gender fluid.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, though, as soon as you've done the announcement, the coming out, that's your identity now. You don't have to do anything physical. You don't have to transition in any observable way.
Yeah.
You can have your goals, and that's excellent. I hope people strive for their trans goals. But once you've defined your pronouns, that's your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out is really the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
After a very, very, very long journey.
Oh, yeah. God, getting there is the worst part.
Yeah, because you and I are a lot older than most people who come out as trans.
Yeah.
In our 30s.
Mm-hmm. And there was also a period where, hell, I almost got roped in by TERFs. Because when I was really, really young, I dated a trans girl, and she was super abusive. And so then I fell in with some lesbians who were TERFs, and they were like, oh, they're all like that. They're all gonna do that. And then it just turns out, no, some people are just assholes, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's almost why I think it's useful to have Caitlyn Jenner so visible, because she's a terrible trans person who we all hate, but we still treat her with respect with regards to trans issues.
It's good that she came out and all that. It's just be quiet. Just stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Just live your new life. Be happy. Shut up about the Republican shit.
It disproves the whole, trans cult thing that cis people really have a grip on for some reason.
Yeah.
And the need for that, your lesbian boss going out of her way to stomp on you.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, we can bury all of that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, those were shameful days.
Yeah, I've certainly had quite a journey of getting to know trans people and getting comfortable with them, and then sort of becoming one. I'm not 100% confident calling myself trans, even though it's technically true.
Yeah, there's imposter syndrome is a bitch.
100%, yeah. That's why I've been going as Tom Girl for years, because it's a gibberish word that means nothing. So I'm not co-opting anything. But roughly, well, it was 2008. I was living with my friends in New Jersey, and we met as a group a person who we got to be friends with. I like them very much, and they were clearly different. I sort of waved my hands around near the microphone, like that fox in Fantastic Mr. Fox, to indicate the sort of vague difference that they had about them.
Uh-huh.
And at some point, my friends just turned on her. They started calling her gay, which turned out to be true after she transitioned. And they would not talk to her. They would avoid her. And I still thought she was really cool, even though she was not out of the closet yet.
That's just shitty. I mean, God.
Yeah, I basically felt like I had to choose between my friends and this new cool friend of mine.
Yeah.
And instead I chose neither because I had been made very uncomfortable by the entire situation.
Yeah.
And I had also been made to hate my friends.
Yeah. I know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I had a similar thing where a friend of mine expressed being really uncomfortable with another friend, and I was like, she's okay. Uncomfortable friend ended up moving away. Weirder still, in the 6 months before that, she cut off contact with everybody, which I guess it was her way of making it easier to transition away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the friend that was left behind, which you would think made things easier, was casually transphobic. So it was on Facebook, and she made a just really terrible joke. Called her out on it. It's just a joke. I go, no, apologize. She dug her heels in, and we were no longer friends.
Well, that's a case where you definitely have the high ground and deserve it.
Yeah, it's always how it goes. So it turns out my friend who moved was right all along, and I should have listened and dumped the other girl from the beginning.
Yeah, that's the hard thing that I believe a lot of queer people can probably relate to. Just finding out that your friends who were not queer weren't very good friends.
Yeah. Or they were keeping you around to say, like, I'm cool with that. See, I got this friend here.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, I had this one dude who's a writer. He would come to me to try and get the approval for all of his queer characters. And it's just, like, dude, I should really be paid for that shit. And in the future, I'm going to demand payment.
Yeah, good call. I mean, that's a job, for damn sure.
But yeah, and say queer characters were, of course, he went in the other extreme of the gay guy, where they're super mask, and he thought that was progressive, and he didn't realize he was enforcing a different type of toxic masculinity. So it's just like, well...
Sounds like good work that you were having to fix for him.
I read it and said... Basically, I just threw my hands up and just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Because he was adamant that he had something unique and awesome.
You can sort of not blame him on that regard because representation is so poor in general.
That's true. But at the same time, we don't really need it from cishet white dudes.
Yeah. There's very much the case of that's not your story to tell, so do not tell it.
Although Enby allies listening, I do love you. Truly.
Yeah. Like, sincere allies are very important and very, very awesome people. I have been keeping a tally of people I listen to and know of who I consider to be excellent allies in terms of all gay and trans issues. My list is up to 2. It is Chris Cubis, a comedian from Austin, Texas, and Keith Buckley, the lead singer of Every Time I Die.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone else I've seen be transphobic after years of believing them to be better than that. I follow a lot of comedians. I'm a big podcast fan. 100% of comedians from that previous generation that's currently popular are transphobic.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's awful.
I recently found out Terry Crews is transphobic. It broke my heart.
Yeah, it's just devastating. Like, we're surrounded by milkshake ducks everywhere.
Oh, man.
But I did just today see a tweet that was a bunch of musicians who had signed a petition to stop a Texas anti-trans law.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was signed by 140 musicians, I think. Panic! The Disco is on there, and Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy, both of whom have worked with Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, so
cool.
More points to him. I should really go down that whole list, but it was very good to see.
Yeah.
It was a wild swing in the opposite direction of the last few years of what I've been observing.
Yeah, North Carolina still has boycotts going on because of our lovely bathroom bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad for it. We lost the ACC. Yeah, we were given an ultimatum and to get rid of it by X time. The governor stood his ground, and it'll be reopened for consideration, I think, in 2019. But that was, like, pretty much the only thing my city had going for it was the ACC tournament, and gone. And, like, concerts, pretty much all that comes here now are country and shit like that.
Mm.
You know, people who don't care.
Yeah. Basically, if they're going there, then it's an endorsement of transphobia.
Yeah. They made a token, we're going to address it, but they just changed the words around to where it's pretty much the same thing. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's sort of the worst, but you are at least seeing the backlash.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just transphobia wins.
Yeah.
It's still horrible, but you find your allies in it.
Oh, God. I was at a restaurant one time, sitting in the bar, and this guy who was already a bit drunk, it was when they were talking about repealing the bill, because our new governor wants to take away the bathroom bill, does that mean I can use the ladies' room? And the bartender, being the diplomatic, protecting sort, just shrugs. And sure enough, he goes to the ladies' room, and it's just...
Point made, tough guy.
Yeah, I just gave him a look. That's all I could do.
Ugh.
I'm sure he pee all over everything.
Yeah, he sounds like a real American hero.
Yeah.
I wish that were more ironic than it should be, because that actually is common American sentiment. Oh yeah, it turns out we are the majority, despite how it seems all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, queerness and queer allies, that's the way things are going, and we'll eventually get there.
Mm-hmm. Funny thing, when the bill first passed, I got, we had a bunch of buttons printed up that says, I'll go with you, and it had the trans flag colors, and you like wear them out, so like if somebody was nervous about going to the bathroom, there was a technicality where if you were a helper, you could take them to the bathroom of your gender. So like even if somebody thought they were in the wrong bathroom, you could say like you were helping them. And I did not know at the time that I was also trans, so... And since then, wouldn't you know it, I've gotten shit for going to the ladies' room.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, that's just a difficult thing in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of lucky in the sense that I always clock as straight male.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a complete daywalker and probably always will be. But it's also a source of dysphoria, so...
Yeah. But I don't know what it is with these dudes who decide they're defenders of the bathrooms. But I walk out and they're just there.
Ugh. Yeah, you're in the single worst place for that.
Yeah.
And it's a real bummer. But I'm glad you shared your experience on the subject, because it is good to get that out there.
Yeah. Thankfully I always have a cane, so I can just frighten them with it.
Yeah, do you have like a cool, like, inefficient stick cane, or does it branch out at the bottom?
It's carbon fiber, so it's pretty efficient. Lightweight.
Nice.
Could do some damage. Also has a little cat charm on it, because of course it does.
That is pretty awesome. It seems very much like you have a much longer term experience with trans issues than I do. I've only had them since 2008, so that was the very first time I ever met a trans person, even considered trans people existing.
Yeah, my experience started when I was 16, and that was my first long-term relationship, and she was in the closet for a long time, like, she finally came out to her family, but was afraid to do HRT. But there was a lot of gaslighting. And she always had to be right about everything. And if I tried to argue about something or say, like, I don't think that's right, she would just talk louder. And just stuff like that all the time. And it got to the point where, like, I didn't know what was right or real or anything. And then she kept trying to sabotage me with my friends, isolate me, classic behavior. Like, say she didn't like them, or they were bad for me, or, like, they said this. And what made things worse was her mom got colon cancer right around the time I was trying to work up the courage to break up with her. And then she died. And
oh God.
The worst thing was I was in the hospital room, and she said she never got to the point of, referring to the proper name or pronouns, but she said, "You're so good for her," and, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting there like, oh God, just screaming on the inside. And she passed shortly after that, so I ended up staying with her another year, and she went into a tailspin. Would not take care, executive dysfunction got to be a big problem. I ended up fulfilling the role of her mother, and finally I met a new friend, and she saw what was happening and was like, "You need to get away." So I finally cut off contact, and it was really difficult because she, started, going full tilt on the, they're going to commit me, it's going to be your fault, I could kill myself, etc., etc., etc. And then, the final straw, and it's actually kind of awesome, is she called my mom, and my mom chewed her out. So after my mom got done, tearing her a new asshole, she came to me and was like, "I wish you told me sooner that, this was happening." And I said, and I told her, not even I really realized it was happening. And she said to me, "You just need to find someone that makes you happy." But not even my mom realized then that, she was a she.
Mm.
But in my subsequent dating disasters, she did go on to say, "You need to find a girl who makes you happy." So at least she accepted that part.
Fair enough. I kind of can read something into that emphasis, but
yeah,
hopefully it's not there.
Oh, she never thought of the first ex as an abusive guy in particular.
Okay.
Yeah, she never knew she was trans, so there was never anything there. She just didn't like them as a person.
Mm-hmm. Well, that clearly makes sense given what you've just said.
Yeah, but for the longest time, she hoped the lesbian thing was a phase. Mm. And it was always kind of whenever I brought girls home. And then finally, she was like, find a girl who is good for you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Another difficulty of being in the South, but
yeah,
things come around. It's nice to see.
But now I'm to the point where ace, and it's how do I date?
Yeah, that is the question.
You want OkCupid, it's we can cuddle on the couch and watch Netflix, but there will be no chilling.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a crush on me, and I saw on Facebook she joined an asexual dating group, even though she wasn't asexual. But I guess she was looking for that sort of relationship, which I personally do not know what that sort of relationship is. I've been sort of in and out of the closet on asexuality.
Yeah.
And the only time I ever had a relationship, I was not being asexual at the time, so.
Yeah. Oh, some people are okay with performing as their partner needs, and I've tried.
Yeah, it's very important to note that asexual does not mean celibate, anything of the sort.
I've tried every which way there is, and I've got some stories, but never mind that. But it just never really did anything for me, and it always led to misunderstandings and hurt feelings and just awkwardness.
Can relate. Now, it did seem from your description that you sort of went the opposite way that I did with the trans issues.
Yeah.
Where you started out very positive on them and then sort of flipped because of your terrible experience.
It was like a roller coaster. Up, down, back up. Because, like, I went seeking lesbian groups, ended up finding radical feminists, and them telling me all the recruitment shit, and me being so hurt and wounded that I believed it for a bit.
Yeah.
And then I met nice trans people and realized that no, my ex was just an asshole regardless.
Yeah.
And I got away from all that, but it did make me realize how easy it is for them to recruit people. Because, like, when you're, like, unsure or you've been hurt by someone like that, it's easy to make the leap to think that all people, or whatever type, are like that. And
yeah, absolutely. Most people do not think about gender, and as soon as someone forces them to think about gender, they become very, very uncomfortable and want it to stop.
Yeah.
That's absolutely how I felt when I had my trans friend, who, before she even transitioned, was already the girliest girl that ever girled.
Yeah.
So I wasn't uncomfortable with that until she made it official. I don't know why I wasn't comfortable with it. I just felt like maybe I would offend her inadvertently. It just felt like I was suddenly walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't. She was very cool, but I didn't want to risk it.
Yeah, I'm still not out to my mom, actually. It's one of those things where it's just... She's 70, and I don't think she could really get non-binary. But she does understand trans, because one of my exes is a trans man. And my mom's a notary public, so she ended up notarizing his petition for a name change.
Oh, cool.
And like on the way there, I had to keep coaching her. It's like, it's he, okay? It's he. And she did good. She didn't, misgender them. But still, she was a little, I wouldn't say weirded out. She just couldn't quite wrap her head around it because... Like, he's very short. And like, she knew him when we were dating before. But like, even back then, he was, like, kind of manly. Which is just, the only thing was he was short. Like, he was still a dude.
Yeah.
Like, he was very sporty. Like, running all the time.
Yeah, I get that. That's why I made a very strong point of saying, once you've determined your pronouns, anyone who has respect for you will agree you've transitioned, that you're there.
Yeah. Although there was one case where my mom slipped up and then immediately corrected herself. So that is, she at least tries.
Yeah. And that's 100% acceptable. People are going to make mistakes. As long as they don't repeat them to the point that it's clearly intentional, then all's well.
Yeah.
I'd like to think. I'm certainly not the arbiter of justice on this.
I have a tendency to say them for everyone. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's how I've gotten in recent years. If you go to conventions and it's not game or X where they explicitly put your pronouns on your con badge, then you don't want to take a guess because you'll sometimes be surprised and it'll be a cause of discomfort for the person you're speaking to, which you don't want to be.
And I think saying it, like, in general helps me, like, get used to applying it to myself. Because
absolutely.
I told my therapist, and she was describing, like, I was talking about the idea of if I was ever famous, and she slipped up and said she, and I said, oh, excuse me, them. And it kind of threw me for a loop for a moment, because since she's the only one like in real life, who knows, that was the first time I'd heard someone else say it out loud. And it's like, oh yeah. Like, this feels nice.
Yeah, I mean, going back to my selfie from like half an hour ago, I am clearly a bearded individual, and I have no intention to change that. And also, my voice does not clock as gender neutral in any way. So I am honestly kind of okay with being misgendered, but I would like to get into the habit of being called them. Make practice of it. I've been making practice of other people respecting their pronouns for many a year now, so.
Given my experience with voice chat and MMOs, I apparently confuse people with my voice.
Yeah, I can see that.
And also my tendency to play male characters and female characters.
Yeah, that's representing yourself in a role-playing fashion.
Yeah. And they also tend to ask me to say something sexy.
That's always fun.
To which I reply, something sexy.
Ah. You could switch to fuck yourself, because that involves sex.
I'll have to use that for next time. Yeah, I don't get the appeal to my voice. But if you're listening and you like it, cool. This took years and years of speech therapy, and I still mess up sometimes.
I have always despised my voice, but a small percentage of people in my YouTube comments say I should like do voice acting and shit like that.
I like it. It's pleasant.
Well, there we go. I also like your voice.
Aww. This has been the compliment moment.
We're friends.
Compliment corner. Thank you.
Yes. That's about all I can handle of being complimented, though. I get angry if there's too many compliments thrown my way. Gotta start refuting them. But, like, I have never really presented too strongly as female. I've always... I think I was the first person in my D&D group to play a character who is not their own ostensible gender.
Yeah. When I did VTM, I did a male character, and it just confused the hell out of everybody. They just got the pronouns wrong, left and right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite a leap to, like, be in a role-playing situation as...
I finally just gave up and made a female character just to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about me is that I've never competed with males in any way. Like, I've never tried to be strong or athletic or anything like that. I've always tried to be, like, I've heard girls have good memory, so I've always tried to have a good memory, and I do. And I've heard, like, girls are good at multitasking, and I try to practice that as much as one can practice it.
I went full internalized misogyny for a while there. You know, the I'm not like other girls type shit. And, you know, drinking, partying, going out with the guys. So
yeah, sort of tomboy stuff.
Yeah, I kind of went too far. So it took a little bit to get past that to achieve a more reasonable balance. But forget what year it was. But what I really wanted to do was drag king shows. And I wanted to do like Bowie as the Thin White Duke. But it turns out the most popular and accepted style of drag king is very baggy pants, gold chains. They use cork to put on like a 5 o'clock shadow. It's just very not what I want to go for, which is, you know, dapper and timeless.
Yeah, it sounds more gender neutral than it's specifically male.
Yeah, it's extremely butch, really.
Yeah. I would think Bowie's an excellent choice because he's already near androgynous.
Yeah. But I can't even afford the kind of suits I would need for that.
Yeah, it's also a difficult choice because he's a millionaire.
Yeah. Rip.
Indeed. Oh yeah, I mentioned I was sort of uncomfortable with my trans friend when they were first coming out, which I regret, but it always stuck in my head over the years because I like this person a lot. Like, they were a really close friend.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd just been turning it over my head unconsciously for a long time because it was a couple years later. They came out in 2009. Laura Jane Grace came out in 2012.
Yeah.
And I was ecstatic. Like, that was the greatest moment in my life for some reason.
Yeah.
Partially because I had seen Against Me live before she came out. And they were phenomenal. They really surprised me. It was at a music festival, and I saw them on the bill, and I said, a band with an exclamation point in the name, I'm not watching that shit.
Your metrics for, like, disqualifying bands are very arbitrary, it seems.
Yeah, I was kind of a snob. Every music fan is kind of a snob. Yeah, but I was wandering around when they happened to be playing on the main stage and nothing else was playing. So I wandered over to their set, not even knowing it was them, and I stuck there through the entire thing, and it was incredible. And towards the end, I realized, oh, it says Against Me on their amp. They tricked me. They tricked me into liking a band with an exclamation point.
Those bastards.
And then when Laura Jane Grace came out, I thought it was the coolest. I thought I really want to see her live again because that's going to be awesome. And my first Diablo 3 character I named Grace.
Aww.
I do think we have covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, I'm sorry I got so heavy.
I am very pleased with everything you've brought to the table. One thing that I intended to be the sort of icebreaker for this podcast was, how'd you first hear about Let's Plays? That's worth going back to now, right?
Yeah, my first horrible relationship and then Let's Plays.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it is something we have in common as a community.
Yeah, which Let's Plays were their own kind of weird relationship. Since I am older than Dirt, I became aware of them before there was a subforum. And they were just threads in GBS. They were mostly just like screenshots. And
yeah, I've heard about those legendary days.
Yeah. God, that was forever ago. Oh, God. And things were much looser and laissez-faire. That's like when laissez-faire was a forum, too.
Wow, you've got me beaten on that knowledge. I'd never even heard of that.
Maybe that was even before then. Shit. But, yeah,
So before even our savior Slowbeef came along and turned everything into videos.
Yeah. It was just, like, random stuff. And then Slowbeef, like, made... He did, like, the really popular screenshot Let's Plays. Like, he first did Darkseid as a screenshot Let's Play. And, the other people I can think of... Well, the freelance astronauts are just gone. I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. Not that I mind. I never really liked their stuff, but...
Yeah. Yeah, the early days, a lot of slurs and just terrible, terrible jokes.
Tip and 40s have explicitly apologized for that.
Oh, yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, the Shenmue 2 LP is good. Maybe don't watch the Shenmue 1 LP. But
it's difficult to go back to that time just for quality reasons, not even just content.
Yeah. But, yeah, I lurked for the longest time. And then the first LP I was on was Bacter's The Colonel's Bequest.
Oh, shit. That was you. Wow.
Yeah.
That was my favorite Let's Play for a long time, because that Let's Play is really great.
I forget which episode I was on, or even if it was cut, or...
I think there was only one episode with a guest, so...
Oh, yeah, I remember a lot of the guests were too intense, so I don't know if I was kept or what.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't remember you being on there. I'll have to go back and check, because that's news to me.
I think we just ended up talking, and maybe it didn't get used. But... Oh, yeah, and then we tried doing Discworld Noir, and I'm pretty sure it ended up not getting used. Because, again, we ended up going off on tangents.
I mean, that's the kind of Let's Plays I'm into now.
Yeah.
I wasn't back then, but...
Bacter stuff is good, but he's definitely more focused. and I recommend them.
Absolutely. Love Bacter.
Definitely his Oxenfree is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been forever, and I cannot escape. So here I am.
Yeah, I'm surprised you've had such a history. That's impressive.
Yeah, I've lurked forever and never really posted about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
the first time I ever saw you post, I remember this, was in the sequel to The Colonel's Bequest, the Dagger of Amon-Ra. At the very end of, I think after the last update was posted, you said to Bacter, you got to have me on for the next one. And then you made a point of saying, that's not weird because we're friends. And I was like, this person is cool because they're friends with Bacter.
Yeah, now that you mention that, we don't really talk much anymore.
Yeah, that happens in Let's Plays. I've recorded with exclusively really awesome people, and I don't talk to any of them. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, we used to talk on Steam all the time, and then,
Yeah, it happens. It's weird.
One of these days, I'll do my own LP.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
To be announced.
You did touch on something there with the prevalence of slurs back in the early days of Let's Play.
Uh-huh.
I think there was a very strong belief that everyone who was doing Let's Plays was straight cis dudes.
Uh-huh.
It is very clear these days that is not the case at all. I had that impression for a long, long time.
Yeah, a lot of people were in the closet back then, as we know now.
Yeah, it seemed like nowadays the LGBTQ thread on the Let's Play zone seems to very strongly indicate that there's a huge prevalence of trans and gay people in Let's Play. And I didn't even know that. I knew of about 2 or 3 queer people in Let's Play before I came to the zone, and then that thread just exploded it all in my face. It's pretty cool. So there's definitely a fundamental connection between queer people and Let's Plays. It's completely coincidental for the most part, but it's cool. I really like seeing it.
We connect through video games.
Indeed. Better than having video games be a hate group as they have been for the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, I do think we've just about wrapped up every topic I had written down here because I was worried about my ability to hold a conversation.
Well, I've got all kinds of horrible stories, so...
Yep, you're a very interesting person. Did you have anything you wanted to plug besides your mysterious, unnamed Let's Play project that remains to be seen?
Well, I'm working on a game, but it's still in very early development stages, so more on that later.
Indeed. It is an exciting prospect, though, and people should follow you on Twitter for updates, maybe?
Yeah, and like this podcast, it started as a joke on Twitter, and then just took off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please look forward to it.
I know I am. And you are cat-operated on Twitter.
Yeah.
I am Herson Horror on Twitter. I'm going to put that on screen and in the description because there's no way you're going to spell it. No one has ever heard the word Herson before.
I've heard it.
Oh, one person has heard the word Herson before.
I was an English major, so I don't count.
There we go. I do believe that wraps things up for our first episode.
Hooray!
Very happy to have had you on.
Happy to be here. Happy to return any time and drag things down with my tales of misery and woe.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to have you back on. I'm sort of planning this podcast to be a limited run thing. It's the only way I was able to get over the anxiety of doing it in the first place. I'm not putting anything in stone just yet, but
we'll see.
I'm very happy with this first episode. Thank you to everybody who listened, of course. If you have any feedback, I certainly welcome it. I would recommend that you take it to the thread in the lp.zone forums, which I will link in the video description. That's a nice free forum where things will be moderated. I suspect I may have to lock the YouTube comments, so use those at your own risk. The theme music I'm using is Religion of Speed by Every Time I Die. Stay tuned through the end of the episode here for context on why I named the podcast thusly. And I will see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us. Goodbye.
Our souls refuse the grave.